Good morning and welcome to our next webinar in our series here at Cloud Enablers. Today we've got a guest speaker talking about the promise of multi-cloud. Really looking forward to the talk today. First, I'd like to introduce one of our panelists, Tony Rylands. He's the VP of Pre-Sales Engineering for Cloud Enablers. Tony, a little bit about yourself.
Yep, so I've been in the industry for about 20 years. Joined Cloud Enablers about a year ago, and we'll talk through what the product set is, but I'm extremely excited to go through this presentation today, and from that I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Tony. So a few logistics. At the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A session. Please post your questions on the GoToWebinar, and we'll handle those at the end. With that, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Krish. Krish, take it away and introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Krish Subramanian. I am the founder and the Chief Research Advisor at Research, a next-gen research and analysis firm focused on emerging technologies in the context of enterprise customers. Today, I'm going to talk about the promise of multi-cloud. So the idea is to sort of like give you an overview about what is happening with multi-cloud and possibly like help you understand the difference between hybrid cloud and multi-cloud. And then I'll also talk a little bit from an historical context, in the sense that I will try to explain how multi-cloud came into picture, and then put my stake down and argue that multi-cloud is going to be the foundation of any modern enterprise. With that, then I'll introduce some of the multi-cloud platforms I see in the market, talk about the multi-cloud challenges that I see, especially while talking to enterprise customers, and then finally put together a set of slides where I could talk about what are the considerations CIOs, CTOs, operations staff, and developers should have as they embrace multi-cloud. I hope by the end of this talk, you are in a position to take advantage of multi-cloud and effectively implement it in your organization and get better ROI, because you are sort of mitigating some of the risks that is associated with multi-cloud, while taking advantage of lots of advantages multi-cloud offers to developers and business stakeholders. First, before we start, I want to define what multi-cloud is. Multi-cloud is the use of various cloud services from multiple cloud providers, either through direct consumption using the templates these providers offer, or through an abstraction like platform as service that is offered by some of the vendors out there. You could consume multi-cloud in multiple ways. It could be just that you are going to the provider directly and using their templates, or using a platform. It doesn't matter how you are consuming the multi-cloud, but what it matters is you are using various services from multiple cloud providers that suits your application. Before we sort of go in deeply about multi-cloud, I want to sort of put multi-cloud in the context of hybrid cloud. There is a lot of confusion among the customers on the difference between multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. Whenever I talk to customers, they ask, is multi-cloud another version of hybrid cloud? No, it is not. Hybrid cloud came into picture as an extension to private data centers, either for using it with a single app or with in a cloud bursting mode, depending on seasonal needs like post-Christmas sales or post-Thanksgiving sales and stuff like that. Whereas multi-cloud is about using the specific cloud provider for the cloud services these providers offer that fits with the cloud application. So with multi-cloud, you will be using multiple applications in multiple clouds based on the services these applications need. That is different from what hybrid cloud offers. Let us basically let's understand how multi-cloud came into picture, starting with the evolution of public cloud in circa 2008. When Amazon took over the public cloud space and got a lot of traction, there was concern among users about Amazon locking in customers and eventually costing end users to come out of the cloud provider. So to circumvent that, there was a proposal put forward by many in the industry, including myself, about the idea of federated cloud. So federated cloud is supposed to be an evolution from the monopoly of a few cloud providers to include many regional cloud providers and cloud providers offering services focused on verticals. But it didn't take off. The reason is there was no good platform that could help smaller providers to compete effectively with large cloud providers. There were platforms like CloudStack and OpenStack, but it was not reliable enough for regional providers to offer services comparable to Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. Then the data gravity was another big issue. Like people were not sure how to move data around, and there was a lot of confusion, and there were not many services at the time where cloud providers offered a way to mail in, for the lack of better term, data so that they can be deployed on the cloud. And the cloud economics didn't help them either. Google, Amazon, and Microsoft are operating at a scale where they could go on lowering their prices, whereas for smaller cloud providers, that was not the case. And that led to federated clouds sort of failing to take off. And we are now sort of stuck with a handful of cloud providers. I would like to call it as an oligarchy of cloud providers, with some hyperscale providers and some enterprise vendors trying to offer public cloud services. With the evolution of multiple cloud services from vendors like Amazon, Google, Oracle, IBM, and even Alibaba, now customers are like sort of thinking about using different cloud for different applications, depending on the services these applications need. At Rishi.Research, we are pretty convinced, based on our research, talking to enterprise customers, that most of the organizations will use more than one cloud provider by 2020. It's not just Rishi.Research just talking about this. Even our competitors like 451 Research and Forrester talk about organizations using multiple cloud vendors for their applications. In fact, one of the surveys done by a vendor out there, talking to 1,000 IT professionals, found that 85% of the enterprises already have multi-cloud strategy. So it is not whether people are going to use multi-cloud, it is about when and how they are going to use multi-cloud. And we are already seeing the emergence of multi-cloud as a solution for the infrastructure needs in many enterprises today. So before we talk a little deeply on multi-cloud and its challenges, let's try to understand what are the drivers for multi-cloud. As it was in the case with open source and public cloud in enterprises, multi-cloud has been coming from a bottoms up. Various developer groups, developer teams are using multiple cloud for their applications. So they prefer Amazon Web Services for certain class of applications. They prefer Google Cloud for certain other class of applications like machine learning. They prefer Microsoft Azure for many enterprise-focused applications like .NET and Java applications. So this evolution towards multi-cloud is coming from bottoms up. But clearly, the reason for this evolution is the flexibility to innovate. If you're going with the single cloud providers, you are constrained to use only those services that cloud providers offer. Whereas multiple vendors offer multiple set of services, and your applications may need certain services that may not be available with the cloud provider you are using today. And if you are going to adjust your applications to what your cloud providers offers, it is going to slow you down in terms of your speed in which you are innovating. So in this age of Uber, Airbnb, coming from completely outside the vertical and disrupting the entire vertical, you need to be a technology company along with your expertise in your domain. So in order to do that, you need to have the flexibility to innovate rapidly. Multi-cloud provides that flexibility. And compared to what was in the past, today there are many platform abstraction that makes it easy for developers to use multiple cloud. And with the increased use of cloud services in enterprises, many enterprises are worried about lock-in risks. And the emergence of containers has made portability of applications easier, and that is sort of like helping drive the multi-cloud growth. So now I want to put my stake down and argue that multi-cloud should be the underlying foundation of any modern enterprise. I define modern enterprise as the new age organizations where they are also a technology provider along with their domain expertise. They are well prepared in terms of their infrastructure, in terms of their ability to scale, ability to roll out new services at a much rapid rate than what it was done in the past. So if you are modernizing your organization, you need to think about having multi-cloud as the underlying foundation that is going to help you accelerate your innovation much more rapidly and compete with completely new providers coming from technology space or in some other verticals. So this helps you have the leverage to innovate rapidly, taking advantage of your domain expertise and solving customers' problems much better than what others can do from other verticals or from the technology sector. Some of the advantages with multi-cloud, as I told earlier, it's the flexibility to innovate rapidly with the right services. Your developers will be developing applications handling the business needs, and they need to use the right set of services for their applications without compromising on what kind of service they need. So multi-cloud, using multi-cloud as an underlying foundation of your organization, help developers use the right platform or the right cloud provider for their workload. And it will help them innovate much more rapidly than any time in the past. Also, like the market today is more global than it was in the past. And in order to deliver the very good user experience, independent of where your customers are, you need to have multi-cloud as the underlying strategy, because various cloud providers have their data centers located in various geographies. And picking the right cloud provider to handle the use case of your customers will give a better performance, which in turn helps your customers have better user experience. Then there are some countries that put strict rules on where the data can reside. And some of the European countries want data to reside inside their borders. With the multi-cloud strategy, you will be compliant with these kind of regulatory requirements and will make it easy for you to stay compliant. And another advantage of multi-cloud is the advantage with price flexibility. Due to the competition between various cloud providers, the providers are changing the price, reducing the price to be specific at a pace that was not seen in the market in the past. So with a multi-cloud strategy, you will be able to take advantage of this pricing flexibility and make sure that you get better ROI out of your investments. And also, as I spoke, some enterprises are worried about the lock-in risk, and multi-cloud offers risk mitigation with the redundancy in place. However, I want to point out that this use case may sometimes cost you more than what you have been doing with the single cloud providers. So I would sort of warn you to do the math before you use multi-cloud as for redundancy use cases. Before we go further and talk about complexities in the multi-cloud world, let's talk about some of the multi-cloud platforms that are available in the market. I would sort of segment the tool sets in the multi-cloud world around 4 major categories: platforms, container orchestration solutions, multi-cloud solutions, and portable APIs. So portable APIs are critical to ensure the multi-cloud functionalities, because it lets you talk to multiple cloud providers using a single API. That way you are not locking in your application to a particular cloud provider. So Open Service Broker API is one good example of this. I would even add that CoreStack, if you take advantage of CoreStack API, you will be able to reduce the lock-in risk to a particular cloud provider. And there are many multi-cloud management tools from various vendors, including CoreStack, who is sponsoring this webinar, that can help you manage the complexities in the multi-cloud world. Then there are tools like Kubernetes, Mesos, and Docker Swarm that will help you handle the moving containers from one cloud to another. That will sort of abstract away some of the complexities there. Then you have developer platforms like OpenShift and Cloud Foundry, which will help you give a single API to which your developers can push their applications and manage the underlying complexity with the multi-cloud world in a seamless way. Let's talk about some of the challenges that comes with the multi-cloud. There are tons of advantages by using a multi-cloud strategy, but there are also some challenges which you should be aware of and you should take into consideration before you jumpstart your multi-cloud strategy. You are using multiple cloud providers, so that's going to bring in complexity, and then security is going to change from how you are used to with a single cloud provider. And that also brings in governance issues which you need to take care. And there are some cost risks associated, which I will talk about in a later slide. Let's talk about the multi-cloud management. As you use multiple cloud providers, there are multiple services from these cloud providers. They're all different. So that adds a lot of complexity to managing these services. If you don't manage these services, you're going to get into deep trouble, and your ROI is going to be suboptimal. So it is important that you have a easy single pane of glass with which you can manage these complexity. And you need to have seamless deployment across multiple clouds. That includes a lot of automation, that includes a lot of scripting, so you need to take that into account. And you need to provide your developers programmatic deployment options. If you're going to use multi-cloud, but you are going to make your developers use specific clouds on an individual basis, that is going to sort of slow them down. You need to provide the right set of tools that will empower your developers to rapidly deploy their applications to multiple cloud. That is a critical thing you need to take into account while using multi-cloud. And the idea of security also changes. With cloud, the perimeter changed from your internal data center to a cloud provider. With multiple cloud providers, the idea of perimeter gets even more complex because you're not going to have a single tool like Amazon VPC, which you can use across multiple cloud providers. You need to rethink your idea of perimeter, use the right tools to sort of like overcome some of the challenges that come in because the perimeter runs through multiple cloud providers. And you need to have a single pane of glass that will help you have visibility across multiple services and multiple providers. And you need fine-grained reporting to handle some of the governance challenges that comes with using multiple cloud from different providers. And finally, the biggest challenge, which some might overlook, is the cost factor. Though the multiple cloud providers offer flexibility in terms of which cloud you can use for your need and take advantage of their pricing, if it is used in certain use cases like HA or some other use cases related to redundancy, it may add up fast and you will end up spending more money than what you will do with a single cloud provider. And if using multiple virtual machines, spawning multiple virtual machines inside your data center is a tough problem to solve. Think about spawning multiple virtual machines or even multiple containers across multiple cloud providers. It's going to be a big cost-related problem. So you need to take these things into account. So these are some of the challenges with the multi-cloud strategy. Before I go further, I would like to sort of bring in Tony from CoreStack to talk about how their platform is solving some of these challenges. Tony, take over.
Thanks, Krish. So yeah, I'll just provide a real quick introduction into the CoreStack platform. We'd love to spend or take a deeper dive, and we'll have additional webinars that you can attend, or feel free to reach out to us at sales@cloudenablers.com, and we can set up a time to do a demo for you. But the idea of CoreStack, especially as when we're talking about in the multi-cloud space, is the initial vision for it, and the reason it was architected is to increase innovation and productivity, optimize cloud costs, and control governance and security. So if we look at the application itself and the environment that Krish has talked about, all of the different service providers out there, the cloud service providers, they act in their own silo. They have their own level of tool sets, their own level of management interface, et cetera, et cetera. So when you look at it from an enterprise standpoint, once you start adding on multiple different cloud environments, it becomes really difficult to not only manage that from a security and governance perspective, but also just keeping your employees and required skill sets up to speed. And then when you start adding on all the tool sets, that's another level of silo. And so where CoreStack comes into play is we have an offering, a SaaS offering, hosted in AWS or Azure Cloud. You can install it in your own environment, on-prem, or in your own data center, or in your own private cloud as well. So, and CoreStack manages all the different environments, as you see on the slide, but also one of our disruptors is we integrate with all the standard tool sets out there. So we utilize the domain-specific languages of the cloud service providers, and we integrate with Chef, Puppet, Ansible, and PowerShell from a script mechanism, as well as different monitoring tools and CI/CD tools to manage your software development lifecycle process. But then we also can wrap a single policy and governance engine around all of that, so that no matter what environment your users are utilizing in order to innovate, they can make sure that that's following your business processes and policies. So again, this is just a really high overview of CoreStack, the platform. Love to talk to you more about it, but at this point, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for the introduction. So now, before we wind up, I want to talk about some of the considerations for different stakeholders who are in any organization's multi-cloud strategy. Let's talk about what decision makers like CIOs and CTOs need to take into account as they embrace on their multi-cloud journey. They need to sort of make it clear to all the stakeholders that multi-cloud is going to be the foundation of their modern enterprise strategy. That requires getting all of them to understand the advantages that comes with multi-cloud strategy, but also the challenges that prop up with the use of multi-cloud strategy. This also requires the decision makers to foster a new culture, a new mindset that sort of focuses on rapid innovation. Because the advantage with multi-cloud is the flexibility to use the right set of services to innovate rapidly. And if you don't sell your stakeholders on this advantage, that is going to sort of give you suboptimal returns. In order to sort of get all the stakeholders buy into this, you need to change the culture in your organization from more like a reactive approach to a more proactive approach, where innovation is the driving point for everyone, like whether it's operations in enabling innovation, or developers in writing code that will sort of help business leaders take advantage of their code to sort of convince their customers on the value they offer. So that cultural change is critical, and also you need to focus on controlling complexity. Multi-cloud brings in complexity. It's going to, with all the services these cloud providers are coming out every day, it's going to make it really, really complex. And the idea of security changes completely. You need to sort of ensure that the team responsible for security is included in all the discussions, from the decision makers making a multi-cloud strategy, to operations team setting up the necessary platform, to developers building security into their application. So security should be part of your innovation program than an afterthought or something which you slap on in the end. So that is something which you need to take into account. Then cost control should be built into your strategy. If you don't do that, you're going to end up spending more money than what you would spend with your internal data center or a single cloud provider. So make sure there are necessary checks and balances, necessary tools that helps you keep cost under control. And it is important for you to plan on the skills shortage. There are not going many people out there who are like ready to use all these tools that are coming up every day in the market, and the skills necessary to manage a multi-cloud environment. And you need to sort of plan for it and make sure that your organization is well prepared for any shortage that comes in the way. And develop a playbook so that it can be sort of repeated across the entire organization. So having a clear playbook not only sort of helps others to look up to it as they go about executing the multi-cloud strategy, but it also helps you in bringing it to any new division or any new team that comes up in your organization. So having a playbook is very important. For the operations team, it is important that you have a single pane of glass across multiple cloud providers. If you don't have the single pane of glass, there are two problems. One is managing these services is going to take a lot more time. It's going to slow down innovation. Second, there is security and governance risk, which is going to come and sort of create trouble for you down the lane. So it is important that you have a single pane of glass across all the cloud providers. And developers can innovate only if they have access to the various services these providers offer. In order for developers to use all the services offered by these cloud providers, starting with infrastructure all the way to higher order services, you need to let developers use a specific templates for these services. So it is critical that the platform you use encompasses or encapsulates all the templates that are needed for a specific cloud provider. So I think it is important to look for the right tool there. Then monitoring is going to be even more complex. Monitoring in cloud required a paradigm shift. Monitoring with multi-cloud and with containers, it requires a complete rethink on how you have been going about doing monitoring. So you need to take that into account. Access control, bug patches, security updates, you need to have a proper strategy and a proper execution model so that you don't end up caught with something big. So it's important that you have a proper strategy for that. And developers require a programmatic access to the services, all these services. So it is important that you cut down on all the necessary bureaucracy and make it easy for developers to get the services they need for their applications. For the developers in the audience, it is important that you pick the right cloud for your application needs. Do not compromise on what a specific cloud provider offers. If AWS doesn't offer a good set of tools for your machine learning needs, go to Google. The same thing applies to other providers too. It is important that you pick the right services for your application needs and take it from the right cloud provider. Then pick the right architecture to manage the complexity in multi-cloud deployments. Having monolithic architecture across multiple cloud is the recipe for disaster. So at Rishidot, we sort of encourage you to take a look at using microservices as a part of your multi-cloud strategy. However, not all applications can be refactored into microservices. So in some cases, you may have to use monolithic apps. But it is important you pick the right architecture and the right underlying cloud for your applications. And having a microservices architecture will definitely help them. And there are many platforms out there that gives you abstractions at various levels. So there is no single platform that will solve all the needs. So picking the right abstraction is also important. And take advantage of portable APIs. I can't sort of emphasize more on this. Portable APIs are the one that is going to give you a way to move across multiple cloud providers without too much re-architecting of your applications. So take advantage of that. Take advantage of any abstraction that can help you easily deploy, and that is going to make your application fit well into the multi-cloud strategy of your organization. So we talked about the advantages of multi-cloud. We talked about challenges. Tony briefly talked about how CoreStack helps you mitigate some of these challenges. Let's sort of conclude this webinar by talking about various takeaways we could get from this webinar. You need to understand that multi-cloud is the foundation of modern enterprises. Multi-cloud provides the flexibility to innovate rapidly and stay ahead of the competitors. Multi-cloud also adds complexity for various stakeholders. It is important that these complexities are handled with the right set of tools, and security and cost is taken into account as you go about executing your multi-cloud strategy. With the right tools and abstractions, developers can write their application that can seamlessly work across multiple clouds. Picking the right playbook for your organizational needs is very important. So it is important for the decision makers to think about it and get it done. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, we can continue this conversation on the social channels. My coordinates are here, so you could contact me either on Twitter or by email. And if you want to know more about Research, I suggest you to visit these social pages. I suggest you sort of subscribe to Research YouTube channel, where we update content regularly, and also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chris. Really appreciate that. Great insights on what is happening in the marketplace and what's going on in the technology space around cloud and multi-cloud. So thank you. Okay, so we've gotten a few questions on the question channel there on the GoToWebinar. So the first one here, and I think this probably will go to Tony, but I'll let you and Chris decide. The first one: is there any benefit if you are using just one cloud in using CoreStack or any other cloud management tool?
Okay, yeah, I can take that one. So even with a single cloud environment, there's still many vulnerabilities from an enterprise management standpoint. We look at shadow IT, where users are bypassing IT and requesting resources in the cloud. Nowadays, it is so easy for that to happen. They can, in a lot of cases, utilize their own credit card, or with AWS, you get a free year when you first sign up. There's a free tier of services allowed, or resources allowed. Azure, you get a credit when you first sign up into those environments. So it makes it extremely cost-effective and extremely easy for users inside the enterprise to order up resources in the cloud and move the workloads and start doing testing or development, etc. The problem with that is that following your business processes and policies? Is that environment secure? Who has access to it? Is that being controlled? We also look at things like the complexities around some of the orchestration tool sets. Are there ways to simplify that? One of CoreStack's strength is having a orchestration template visualizer or builder built into the platform, where you can drag and drop what sort of orchestration template you want to utilize, and it will build that for you automatically. We look at things like SLAs or uptimes, the potential for portability or scalability on an as-needed basis, and then as well as cost. What do your cloud costs look like? Are there ways that we could increase utilization and streamline those costs? Look for and discover things like orphan VMs that are sitting out there not being utilized. Can we streamline the time frame it takes when you spin up a resource and a user starts using that? And then on the flip side, when the user's done with their development cycle, can we terminate that resource automatically so that we're not paying for that to sit out there not being utilized? So there's a ton of benefits with the CoreStack platform. Again, feel free to reach out to us. Hope that answers your question, and we'd be more than happy to talk about this more offline.
To sort of continue with what Tony said, even if you're using a single cloud, it is better to have the abstractions, better to take advantage of the various abstractions provided to you by tools like CoreStack and others. Especially using portable APIs will help you move to a multi-cloud world in the future. The same applies to the operational, reducing the operational complexities by having a layer of abstraction there. I think I fully agree with Tony when he says like using a platform like CoreStack will help you reduce some of the complexities associated with even a single cloud provider. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chris and Tony. Really appreciate that. Okay, our second question here, some of it I think was covered in Chris's talk here, but I'm going to ask it anyway. It says, what are the key parameters that you should consider when considering multi-cloud adoption?
Yeah, I did cover about it in my webinar, but the key thing you need to think about multi-cloud is having the flexibility to innovate. If you come at multi-cloud from the point of view of cost, that may not be the case all the time. So you need to come from the point of view of having the flexibility to innovate, giving developers the right tools for their application needs. So if you come from that point of view, your multi-cloud strategy is really going to help your organization. And I also want you to be aware of all the challenges that come with multi-cloud and the right set of tools that can mitigate the risk with multi-cloud. If you are aware of the challenges and take the necessary steps to mitigate the risk, I think your multi-cloud journey will be much more seamless than sort of jumping in without having any idea and trying to figure out what you can do with it.
Yeah, one other thing I'd add as well, one of the best practices is, I mean, you should be doing this anyways with a single cloud environment, but once you start adding on multiple clouds, it makes it even more relevant, but that is creating a cloud steering group or a cloud center of excellence. So that usually consists of a high-level executive sponsor that will manage the vision of that steering group. And then the group will be made up of someone from your security organization, someone from IT, someone from the development organization, someone from HR, et cetera, so that you can create what you want your business processes and policies to look like, what sort of policies they need to follow from each mechanism that makes up deployment, management, et cetera, of the cloud, but then also who's going to do what, who's in charge of what. So if you can build that framework ahead of time, that is one of the best practices when looking at cloud and especially multi-cloud as well.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate that and those answers to that question. Okay, the next question here is, all right, extending management capabilities gets more complex when adopting multi-cloud. What are the best ways to handle this complexity?
Yeah, again, back to Krish's talk, really having a centralized policy management engine like CoreStack to manage all your policies, make sure that we are automating the process for security vulnerabilities from a detection, prevention, and correction standpoint, as well as being able to optimize your cost and optimize resources that are out there. What happens, especially when you start expanding into the multi-cloud environment, a lot of people are requesting resources here and there, and it's hard to really get a hold of what is where and what is being used and what isn't. So having a platform that can consolidate that view for you and have a centralized place to manage all that is key.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, having a single pane of glass across multiple cloud providers is a critical thing. And I would also add to it the other thing which I talked about briefly in the webinar. Automate, automate, automate. That should be your mantra for the multi-cloud world. If you don't take advantage of all the automation tools that are available, you are going to have suboptimal benefits. So think about right tools for automation. Think about empowering developers with the self-service option, and I think that's going to reduce a lot of complexities associated with multi-cloud.
Great, thanks, Christian, thanks, Tony. Okay, the last question I have here from the audience is, with multi-cloud gaining traction in the marketplace, a lot of things are coming out from different research organizations like Gartner and Forrester and Chris's organization, Rishidot Research. So I apologize for that. Is it really something that we should be considering, or is it really just a fad? You know, give the audience a little bit more insight into that.
Yeah, multi-cloud is not a fad. Like possibly if you think of using multiple cloud for a single application, probably that's not going to work out. And that's going to create more troubles than whatever it solves for you. But not all cloud providers are the same. If they are going to be the same, there's no differentiation between them. And so they are going to sort of own up other competitors and come up with services which others cannot offer. And some of these services from different vendors will be the right set of services that your application needs. maybe not the applications you have today, but the applications you will need for competing the Ubers of the world or Airbnbs of the world. So for that, you need to take advantage of these emerging services. And these services are not going to come from a single vendor. It is going to come from multiple vendors. So you need to be prepared for a multi-cloud world. Avoiding multi-cloud is not going to be the right choice if your focus is on innovation.
Tony, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, just a little bit to add on to that. And so also another thing you want to look at is portability or your SLA. So if during an outage, what do we do? Is there a way to say, okay, although we want to stick with a single cloud environment today, but during a specific outage, have the option to be able to port all of that live into another environment? That will be a huge concern as well. And looking at uptime and being able to do a kind of a price performance comparison. And then just adding on to what Krish said around their services. If you look at the market today, Azure is really good for enterprise apps, which Krish talked about. AWS has a ton of tools for the developer. And then you look at Google AI and deep machine learning applications and offerings that they have. So as an enterprise, being able to pick and choose the cloud that best fits your needs will be really powerful when you're looking at innovation, right? And trying to innovate faster and use the best tool again for the job.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Tony. Thanks, Krish. So with this, I'd like to thank everybody for attending our webinar today on the promise of multi-cloud. Hopefully you got some great insights from Krish, and thank you very much. Special thanks to Krish for coming in and being our guest speaker today. And also thanks to Tony for his insights and talking about how CoreStack can help out with some of the complexities and challenges in implementing a multi-cloud strategy. So I'm Mike Stipe, the Chief Revenue Officer at Cloud Enablers. I really appreciate you attending our webinar today. We'll make it available on our website later today. And please follow us on Twitter or on Facebook or on LinkedIn and look for more to come from us on how we help you in your cloud journey. Thanks a lot, and you guys have a great day or great evening.